NFL season started. The
Let's go.
opener started. Cowboys versus Buccaneers. I don't think there was a better way to start the season than this game. I was watching it. I was excited. It had a bunch of offensive firepower, timely defensive stops, and a bunch of momentum swings. What are your thoughts on the game? Give me a quick recap, your thoughts. What was your biggest takeaway? What did you think? I'm going to start with you, Riv.
Well, first of all, move your knee.
Bro,
Your knee is
I
all
barely
in my
have
way.
any space as is.
I keep
You're
hitting
mad
your knee.
selfish.
All right, whatever. The takeaway, it's crazy because I was watching the game. I was thinking like, all right, we got Bucks Cowboys and we got 2K coming out. It's gonna be a good night. It's gonna be a vibe out. Boom. I'm at work too, so it's like, all right, this is gonna go by in the breeze. But now I was watching the game, and, Dak really, I don't even like Dak. I'm an Eagles fan. I hate the Cowboys. I'm glad they lost. Get that out the way. But Dak really looked good, all jokes aside. He looked amazing. He looked elite. They made him throw the ball 50-plus times, and he looked phenomenal on almost every throw he did. CeeDee Lamb, he started off the game a little bit, nervous. That's that first game jitters, but he started to pick it up. Gallup, he looked good for a couple possessions, a couple drives. He looked really good. Amari Cooper looked amazing also. That offensive line was really good for the most part. And then Tampa Bay going to be Tampa Bay. Tom Brady's back there. AB was looking like back in the day, AB, Gronk, the same with him. Mike Evans, he was kind of just like, he was losing me a little bit. For the most part, that guys, Godwin, AB, and Gronk, they did what they did. And, of course, that defense made some stops when they needed to make some timely stops. I just, I was watching the game, like I said, and I feel like Dallas had the game in their hands. It's just really what it came down to it for me was red zone inefficiency. I think if they would have connected more in the red zone, they would have scored. They probably would have won the game. I feel like that game was definitely in their hands, and they could have had it. They made some timely stops on defense, got a few turnovers. Granted, I don't think both of those interceptions was Tom Brady's fault, but nonetheless, you get the turnover going. You get the strip on him. They could have won that game. Even then, at the end of the game, they was up 1. They hit the field goal. You give Tom Brady too much time on his hands. He ended up driving down the field. It was amazing the way he did it. He just did it it didn't look like he sweat one time in that drive. It didn't look like he panicked or nothing. He just went through and him and Gronk did his thing. But other than that, this was still a phenomenal game to start the season.
That was a great analysis. You should call Stephen A. so you can be on First Take. I heard First Take is going to have guest appearances now.
Oh, really?
From fans, too. Like, even
Okay.
fans can challenge Stephen A. And if, I guess, he thinks you look the part, he'll have you on.
Word. I guess ultimately it comes down to if you can speak well enough to be on the show.
Yeah, we got to go on pick us. We got to go tag
Audition?
First
Yeah,
Take.
exactly.
Tell
That'd
him
be
to
hot.
pick a side on
That'd
First
be
Take.
mad lit.
Three of us versus Stephen A. I'll be on Stephen A's side, though. Take on you two.
Good.
Okay.
You'd lose.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
You
if
have
we'd
Stephen A.
lose.
You'd lose.
And then him on the same
Yeah,
team,
like,
too,
you'd
so they're
lose.
really done. So a few takeaways. Like you mentioned, Dak Prescott is like that. Now, there are obviously some concerns with his lower half, the ankle injury, of course. Then he had the shoulder injury in preseason. Wonder how that was going to hinder him. Then you look in warm-ups, and now he's warming up like a pitcher. Go ahead.
Can you stop real quick? Because I wanted to ask you a question. Because they said it was a baseball injury, and it was like it rarely happens in football and happens in baseball. So with that being said, does that affect it more because it's it's not a football injury? Does it hurt as much, or is it same nonetheless?
Just the fact that it's a throwing motion. Obviously, the football throwing motion is a little bit different than a baseball motion because a baseball you can kind of come from the side, but if you're a pitcher, more often than not, more pitchers come from the top. So it's kind of like similar finish in terms of football throwing. Because obviously I'm a lefty, Dak's a righty, but you kind of come more circular with football. Right. So that's why what I was going to mention was in the warm-ups. He was doing pitcher-type workouts to loosen up before the game because it was a baseball-type injury. So that's the type of warm-ups that pitchers do. And it was interesting to actually see him go through that routine because I haven't seen another player take that approach. Maybe Russ, because obviously Russ has some baseball experience. Kyler has some baseball experience, but I've never seen it before pregame.
Right.
And it was interesting to see, especially because, people were questioning, how's the shoulder going to be? And then he comes out to start the game first play on the 2-yard line, 3-yard line, and throws a 20-yard pass to Amari Cooper. It's like one of those plays that it's like, all right, Dak is still Dak. His arm is fine. But as the game went on, there were some spotty throws. Underthrew CeeDee Lamb a couple times in the end zone. The one that CeeDee dropped early in the game, there's a little debate whether he was underthrown or not. I personally believe CD should have caught that. CD is a different type receiver. And then he goes and drops the next ball. So I really was thinking, you know what, CD could have, had something to do with that being incomplete. But ultimately, Dak looked money. He threw the ball 58 times. So to only have 16 incompletions is pretty amazing. Threw for 403. That one interception, in my opinion, CeeDee Lamb should have caught that ball. I understand that there were three defenders in that his way, but to go right through the hands and get tipped off a defender and into the air, obviously something's going to happen once the ball goes in the air and there's three defenders, but he gave him a dot. Dak was money last night. One thing I will say, another takeaway, as in terms of Dallas. What are you going to do when you're going against one of the best rush defenses in the league, one of the best we've ever seen? So I'm not going to overthink too much about Zeke's inefficiencies. Only had 33 rushing yards on 11 attempts. I'm not thinking too much into that. People are thinking, oh, man, Zeke had a terrible game. What's going to go on long season? I'm not stressing about it too much. Tampa Bay is one of the best rush defenses that I've personally ever seen. So this is an outlier. He'll come back next week. He'll be more than fine. Now, on the Tampa Bay side of the ball, this man, Antonio Brown, could easily be their number one receiver. And it's not even the volume that he needs to do it. It's the fact that he is a big play away every single game from being the leading receiver on the team. He had 5 receptions, and he led the team in receiving yards. And if Godwin doesn't drop that ball one, he probably passes AB. But that just goes to show you how reliable Antonio Brown is. You can target him 5-6 times a game, but you can count on him potentially going 100%, hauling those balls in, because that's just how elite he is. I knew, given the fact that Cowboys secondary is spotty and Antonio Brown's only seeing man coverage one-on-ones, it's Antonio Brown. He is the best receiver that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years. In my opinion, I think that he is that special. The 2 years that he had with the suspension, not suspension. The suspension, what was it? When he was on the Patriots, he got cut from the Patriots. It was like, not a suspension, but like, all right, you're done.
He was in court at the time, about to go to court.
And then the year after that, he missed like half a season, but then joined the Buccaneers. So obviously those 2 years, people forget what AB really was. And then, now you finally get him a preseason, a training camp. Arians talking about him being the best he's seen and, really taken back since his time in Pittsburgh. I'm not surprised at the things that he's going to do this season. I'm not surprised at the things that he did last night. And it's only going to continue. The Buccaneers are going to have one of the best offenses in the league. They just have too many weapons. But losing Murphy Bunting is gonna hurt them in the end. Now you see him, that arm injury was very ugly. Shannon Sharp was saying how he had an arm injury similar, and he's going to be out 4 to 5 weeks. Who knows? Shannon Sharp's a different type of body, so obviously Bunting's smaller frame, so maybe it'll be a little bit longer for him to come back. But if he's out, that secondary is really hurting. And we saw, obviously, Dak has Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb on the opposite sides of each other. So, the secondary is obviously going to struggle. But regardless of that, they did not look good. Amari and CeeDee could do whatever they wanted. And with Bunting going out, even though Bunting did give up that touchdown.
Dean a lot.
No, for sure. Dean got cooked often yesterday. And if Bunting's going to be out, who was one of their better corners last season, I'm not looking forward to watching the secondary go.
My biggest takeaway from this game is that the Cowboys missed a bunch of opportunities in this game and should have won. First of all, the biggest one of all, Greg Zuerlein missing 2 kicks. One of them, I'll give him a break. It was a 60-yarder, even though he almost hit it. It was 60 yards, but the kick that was 30 yards and the extra point, he should have made that. That was a missed opportunity. The Cowboys forced a turnover in the red zone twice and couldn't capitalize on those turnovers. You mentioned it, red zone inefficiency, that cost them in this game as well. And everybody wants to point to that offensive pass interference. Was it not? I don't think it was. I don't think Chris Godwin's arm extended enough. Chad Ochocinco went on Twitter and gave that same explanation. And I agree with Chad. And I think at that point in the game, you don't call a play. You don't have a flag on that play, because I think it's a football play. It's a 50-50 play. Jordan Lewis fell to the ground because He's 160 pounds soaking wet. To Chris Godwin's a monster of a man. He's extremely strong. So for Jordan Lewis,
He is. That's a big body frame.
I know why you're gonna laugh. I know why you're laughing. And Jordan Lewis fell because he was already off balance, and I think he flopped on that as well. But Tom Brady, ageless wonder, 44 years old. There's a reason why I have his jersey. There's a reason why I'm a Jets fan, but I still respect the hell out of Tom Brady because he is the greatest football player to ever live. Even though the stat sheet doesn't say it because of those 2 interceptions, Tom Brady played a pretty perfect game. And those 2 interceptions weren't even on him. One of them, Fournette bobbled the pass, and the second one, it was a Hail Mary to end the first half. But Tom Brady had as perfect as a game that I've seen. Looking at the Cowboys defense in this game, I think they're much improved from last year. They're actually forcing turnovers. I think the defensive line with Micah Parsons playing all over the place, their defense is more unpredictable, but that secondary is going to haunt them. Trayvon Diggs, I like his aggressiveness. I like how he plays, but I'm not sure if he's good enough to be a number 1 corner. And Anthony Brown, I've seen it for years that he's not good enough to be that. So the Cowboys secondary will always be bad. At least this season, they're going to be bad. But an interesting development is how the Cowboys have transformed themselves from a run-first team heavily reliant on Ezekiel Elliott to now a pass-heavy attack. And I saw a stat that they are 0-17 or 0-19 in their last games that they haven't scored over 30 points. And that, to me, I know everybody loves passing in the NFL, in this current NFL, and I even follow Warren Sharp on Twitter, and he always is annoyed by teams running the ball heavily. But I think a lot of those losses, or all of those losses, are due to the fact that you don't have balance. Dallas needs to have balance. I understand that Dak threw for 400 yards and had 3 touchdowns, and he played a great game. But if you gave the ball to Zeke in the red zone, if you gave the ball to Zeke on Tampa side of the field, maybe you run down the clock even more, and then you could hit the game-winning field goal. But because they were pass happy, they kept getting penalties on that end. It actually hindered their offense. I think you have to have more of a balance. And Zeke only having 11 carries, I think that is a mistake. I know it was the best rushing defense, but you still have to have some type of unpredictability on offense. And I don't think this pass-heavy attack is going to work for Dallas. You look at the last couple of teams that have had the first-ranked offense in terms of passing yards, they haven't made the playoffs. Last year, I believe Dallas was one of the top teams.
It was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
Jameis Winston led the league in yards. He didn't make the playoffs. Jared Goff was second, or he was top 5 that year as well. They didn't make the playoffs either. I think there has to be balance, and right now in Dallas, I don't see there's much balance.
Well, and it's interesting because you was talking about how Zeke didn't get a lot of carries. Do you guys remember that one play where it was in the red zone and Prescott pitched it to Zeke, and it was Zeke. I forgot the tight end's name, and then one guy, and the tight end kind of missed the block, and Zeke just couldn't get separation from the first guy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think like Zeke has lost a couple steps in his game?
He's definitely lost a couple steps, but I also think that was a bad play call because I don't think you should. Zeke has never been that type of wide runner.
Right.
You got to run it up the middle with Zeke. And in the red zone, that's the perfect opportunity to do so because Zeke, you saw in the beginning of the game, he capitalized on a 3rd and short because he fought for that extra yardage. That's where he is used best. I think when you want to give it to a running back that goes wide, Tony Pollard is better in that position. But I do think Zeke has lost a step.
And, I feel like Dallas has always been, and, we've been in the division with them. I've been watching for a minute. I think they've always been at their best when they're balanced. When Dak is doing his thing and when Zeke is doing his thing as one of the best running backs in the league. I feel like that's when they've been, if not balanced, a little bit more run heavy, but still with a very tough passing offense. I think that's when they've been at their best. But like, you said it, I feel like how long is Dak going to be able to throw 50 to 40 times throughout the season?
He could do it all season, I think. He can.
But are they going to be successful with him doing that?
That's the better question. But I think that he can do it.
I don't
because we saw it in 2019. We saw him do it.
To be fair, they're not going to be playing Tampa Bay every single week. They played one of the best teams in the NFL. Before the season started, we all had them as
they got Washington coming up.
which I do believe is going to be a good game. And obviously, I think that their defense, secondary-wise, is better than the Buccaneers. But I'm still taking the Buccaneers' defense over Washington's, even though Washington's defense is like that. Regardless of that point, I still think that Dallas's weapons are good enough to contend with anyone.